Do you know who I am? I'm kind of a big deal.
Hello and welcome inside. It is another edition of the Bmore Baseball Podcast. He's the 14-year MLB veteran. He's now retired. He's just a podcast co-host, but he's in the Orioles Hall of Fame. You're looking and listening to Mike Bordick. I'm Jerry Coleman. We're producing brand new content every day on our X page, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you want to find us. At Bmore Sports Pod is where you find us. And subscribe. When you do and show us evidence, you qualify for that $50 Lido Pizza gift card. I'm down to like 3, Bordy, so you got to show us that evidence to get that $50 Lido Pizza gift card. We've reached episode number 36. Mike and I will resume our exclusive conversation with athletics executive Billy Beane. We'll also talk about with Billy how Moneyball has changed his life and his thoughts on the job Mike Elias has done. And speaking of Mike Elias, he has himself a new manager. We'll talk about Craig Albernaz and what impact he'll have in Birdland. Also, we'll discuss the Shohei Ohtani World Series, which will resume in Canada by the time you're watching and listening to this. And that's where the Fall Classic will end. And then we'll catch up with the good doctor, Dr. Michael Jacob. Well, let's begin with our featured guest, as we always do. He's brought to us by Pappas Seafood. From crab cakes to seafood classics, they'll deliver straight to your door. 4 locations in the Baltimore area, plus nationwide shipping. Order today, like Billy Beane did, at pappascrabcakes.com. That's pappascrabcakes.com. And let's get back to our conversation where I was asking Billy about the baseball player, the best in the world. His name is Shohei Ohtani.
About Shohei Ohtani, because you mentioned the epic game he just had in the National League Championship Series. I mean, we've never seen anything like that. Is he a one of one from what you've seen in all your years of baseball? And do the Dodgers sort of defy Moneyball in a lot of ways because of all this deferred money?
Listen, the Dodgers, you know what? The Dodgers are an example of when you have a lot of resources and you have really, really smart people running it. And that's the combination. Andrew Friedman is his staffer. Listen, they were great in Tampa. And then you take a guy who's running a small market team and you give him a lot of money, he's even better. And hey, listen, the Yankees are like that too. I know, Brian gets a lot, but they're very, very smart. The one thing in general, overall is that the people running baseball teams right now are really, really smart. There's no one out there that like, hey, let's go make trades with this guy because he doesn't know what it's doing. That does not exist. There's 30 teams out there. They're all really, really smart. Some may be slightly better than others. Some of it may be, some bad luck here and there, but these guys are all really, really smart people. As far as Ohtani, I mean, when you play it, like me and Mike sort of come from this era, there's, great player. The great thing about baseball is you can kind of compare eras because of the statistics, which is kind of neat. But Ohtani, I keep trying to, I keep wanting to say, God, there's got to be someone better. But it's, other than Babe Ruth, it's pretty hard to find somebody that has done, the other thing too, that he's one of the fastest guys in the league too. He's like 6'5", so it's a little like when me and Mike were playing, the guy who came up that immediately would wow you would be like Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson did things physically that nobody had ever, Now, he was also a guy who spent most of his life playing football and was so talented. But Ohtani is like taking a guy like Jackson and he's just consistent on a day-to-day basis. He sort of takes the Bo Jackson highlights and then turns it into an everyday way of doing things. And then he also pitches as well. So I thought, for me, when I saw Trout play, because I saw more than anybody, unfortunately, in our division, I thought, wow, this might be the best player I've ever seen. And he's certainly one of them. And now when you see it with Ohtani and you combine it on the hill, it's pretty unique. But you know what? I think what Ohtani's doing, there's going to be another one down the road because now people are open-minded to the fact that, hey, you can utilize this guy's pitching as well. Matt, we had Chapman with us. Actually, Mark Kotsay, great example. Kotsay was a great closer in college, right? And he's college player of the year, but he's also a really good pitcher. Chapman throws about 96, 97 miles an hour. Matt Chapman at third base, when we drafted him.
Wow.
It'll be interesting to see if we start taking some of those skill sets on guys and sort of specifically utilizing them in game situations because of the Ohtani thing. We'll see. I think it'll happen. Yeah.
I think so too, man, because I think more and more players are becoming the two-sport, both sides of the baseball, pitching. Yeah. And I think it's more common, actually, because you see your better athlete typically getting on the bump, going out to shortstop, hitting a home run, and then all of a sudden go to college and be a shortstop or vice versa, be a pitcher. But I think it's going to come more commonplace as well. I just think they are making – Major League Baseball is literally making the perfect baseball athlete through their strength and conditioning. I think that is one of the biggest changes, how the athletes are learning so much more about nutrition, sleep, how to get explosiveness in their body. And it's really become so scientific about, the proper sleep habits. And baseball for years has been really the hardest sport to understand, how to maintain strength throughout the course of a season. And then, God forbid you get into the postseason. How do you jumpstart it up for another month and a half, to keep your body at peak conditions? So I'm fascinated by that, just the health and wellness of the major league player. But that said, Billy, the injury rate is just skyrocketing too. So trying to find balance there, I think, is really important, because this is your resource, man. And like this year, the Orioles, they set a record for most injured players. I mean, how sustainable is this type of thought?
You bring up, it's because usually the question I get, what do I think the next frontier is? I think it's in health. If you look at any sports team, generally the health of that team will determine more often than not where they go. I mean, the one year the Patriots didn't make the playoffs was the year Brady was hurt with New England. That was the one year they didn't make the playoffs. The NFL is very much conditioned on your health. Baseball teams, Mike, as we know, and I can tell you, as running a club, the most frustrating thing was injuries. Was when guys and how do you prevent them? Now, if you ever people get their arms around that, then that to me will be worth a fortune. I think data and analytics will drive a lot of that health. I mean, unfortunately, though, the challenge with analytics and health is that there's privacy issues. Where do you start gathering information on a player's health? Does it start when he's 1 year old? Well, usually when we get players, they're 17, 18, or 21. There's a whole bunch of things that have happened up to that point that may determine their future health. So it's a little bit of a tricky sense there. But if you get it, the health, I think that's the next frontier, trying to, sort of, you're never going to prevent injuries, but maybe predicting them or preventing them in terms of how you rest guys. I've always thought European soccer was very much, because, physical fitness was such a big part of them, that they were probably a little bit ahead of us in terms of, you talk about health, wellness and training, and also the way they eat and sleep and things like that. Sure. Baseballs, I think, is catching up, and other sports are catching up. But I had a friend of mine who ran a Premier League team back in, he came out in like 2006, and he was running one of the Premier League teams out there. And he came and visited me for a week, and he saw the spread, Mike. And this is, that time when you're playing, and he saw all the food that was available. And he was like just blown away that we just put this buffet of whatever and back then it was anything and everything. There was no scrutiny. I mean, you would have pizza, donuts, everything. Yeah. Now that, teams are much more cognizant of what, they're presenting to players. The players want that too. They have their own, their own nutrition coaches in many cases, but I do think health's the one area, because when you lose, you talk about the Orioles. I mean, it's one of those talented teams in the league. When you lose players, and as a GM, the tough thing is the GM, fans don't want to hear it. They just think, you just find somebody to replace it. It's not that easy. If Mike Bordick goes down as a shortstop, the guy behind him is not Mike Bordick, and it's a big drop off. And so figuring that out is really, I think that if you figure that out as a sports team, and in particular a baseball team, you're going to be a very wealthy man, and you're a very successful person that's for sure, running a team.
Yeah, Billy, obviously the movie Moneyball sort of changed your life and put you in the limelight a lot. It's been a while since the movie was out, but it still has ramifications. How has it changed your life for the positive, and has there been a negative factor to it?
Well, given that I didn't know I was going to be on camera, I look like Elvis in a hotel room. So I've just really been a shut-in the whole time. I haven't shaved.
I just got hit for a moment. I have to tell you, I mean, an eerie resemblance.
Yeah, no one was more disappointed than my wife. She goes, "That's ridiculous that he's playing." But I wish I would have enjoyed it more. The one thing, in fairness, listen, the responsibility of it being a good movie, and I thought it was a good movie, was the people who made it. I mean, Michael Lewis wrote the story, and Brad Pitt and the people, Bennett Miller, the director, Sony Pictures, they did a pretty amazing job in putting together what is a pretty dry subject and making it into something entertaining. I had nothing to do with it other than, I happened to be the subject. I wish I probably would have enjoyed the process a little more. I was kind of just wanted to get it over. But I will say this, sort of looking back, hey, listen, I think the book has aged well. I mean, we're sitting here 20 something years later. And again, credit to Michael Lewis, and the fact that it's still relevant is pretty amazing. Books 20 years ago usually aren't relevant. I think that's a credit to Michael. And then as far as a movie, I mean, gosh, it's been 14 years now. And the fact that, it's a little creepy. Why watch it now? But it's a little bit like Ferris Bueller. I can kind of, if it's on sometime, I can kind of pick it up and watch any part of it. So I'm again, I wish I would have enjoyed it more. It's pretty humbling, the people that are involved in it. I consider myself pretty lucky and the product of a lot of smart people and a really smart author who decided that we were worth writing about.
Billy, talking about front office stuff, now you came up with some pretty good executives. Sandy Alderson, Walt Jocketty was the assistant back then. How influential were those guys on maybe sabermetrics, but just you getting into becoming one of the greatest executives in baseball history, really?
Well, it's nice to you. Listen, they're a big deal. I mean, even in Oakland, you came up, Mike, we had a really sort of progressive organization. Tony La Russa, Hall of Fame manager, who was, when he came up, he was the young guy with all the cutting edge stuff, the way he used bullpen. So, and Sandy Alderson, whose background and what led up to being a GM was non-traditional. He wasn't a player. He was, Harvard Law School graduate, a Marine. Walt Jocketty, it was just a very progressive, and to get plopped in there as a player, and then, after playing, and then I've got Tony on one side, I got Sandy on one side, I got Walt Jocketty. We got Carl Keel, who you remember Carl, who was our farm director, who he was kind of an old school, hardworking guy, but he was also a progressive guy in the way he thought of things. It was a pretty dynamic organization. Everybody knows about the major league team, but it was the same. Keith Lippman, geez, So I was pretty lucky to be around people that, listen, you take a little bit from everybody, and then you create your own sort of path too. But I was very, very lucky, and again, the one thing it taught me is that, hey, if you're around a lot of smart people, good things happen. And so when I was the guy making the decisions, I really tried to just surround myself with as many smart, bright people as I could, JP Ricciardi, who you're good friends with, Mike, and then, he was my right-hand guy to start, and he helped me find Paul DePodesta, who was sort of the first of his type to come, a Harvard econ major, and he sort of helped blaze the trail for a lot of others. So I was lucky. I think it was funny. You want to hear a funny story? Is that Walt Jocketty signed me. I was like, at this time, I was a 6-year free agent, and I wanted to sign with a team on the West Coast. I wanted to be in Arizona. I actually called the Giants, like they wanted no part of me. And then I was on the couch. It was December, and I was half asleep. And Walt Jocketty called me. He goes, "Hey, it's Walt Jocketty with the A's." I thought it was a buddy of mine joking, right? And he goes, "No, really, it's Walt Jocketty and wanted to sign me." And I was basically done, because that was a team I wanted to sign with. And I sort of would kid with Walt, who unfortunately passed recently, as you know, that answering that call and just making that decision just changed not only my life, but the life of all the, my family and people around. I was so lucky I got to hang out with you, Bordy, and meet players like yourself and be a part of really one of the most progressive sports organizations, I think, at the time. So I was very, very lucky.
Yeah, you remember Harvey Dorfman too was part of it.
Yeah, you're great.
I think was a huge part of, talk about cutting edge.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, in fact, only Harvey, wonderful guy. What was great about Harvey is that, as a player, when you hear team psychologists, you kind of coil back a little bit, right? Because when the organization wanted you to look at them, they must think like, what do you think? I'm like not mentally strong enough? Harvey was completely different, right? Harvey was just like, he was a great guy, and he just took such a different approach to it. And he was one of the first to, he ended up writing a very successful book, him and Carl. So that was another example, Mike. Yeah, that and he wasn't just the normal psychologist. He wasn't just he was different, and I think blazed the trail for a lot of sports psychologists after him.
Absolutely.
Billy, got a few more questions for you. This one I have to ask you because you've known Mike for so long.
Yeah.
Do you have a good Mike Bordick story, but more importantly, something that you can tell us that maybe, I don't know if it's negative, but we've had so many guests on say so many glowing things about Bordy over the last 30-some episodes. You got anything, any dirt on Bordy you can share?
You're going to think, Mike, listen, Mike looks exactly the same. I mean, the big smile on his face. I wish I could. Listen, there was a few nights me and Mike went out together, like especially in AAA. But I can just tell you, even those nights resulted in Mike not doing anything that you wouldn't expect. Mike, he's just a great guy. And so I'm sorry to disappoint you. Okay. The Mike Bordick you perceive to be is the Mike Bordick in real life. He's just such a great guy, and it was great. That's why I'm doing this, because it was so great to hear from Mike.
More of the Bmore Baseball Podcast coming right up. At Pappas Restaurants, we've been serving up Maryland's best crab cakes for over 5 decades, and now we make it easier than ever to get your favorites. With 4 restaurants and sports bar locations across Harford County, Baltimore County, and Anne Arundel County, you can stop in for fresh seafood, ice-cold drinks, and wall-to-wall TVs. But if you can't make it in, don't worry. We'll bring Pappas to you. Our new state-of-the-art shipping and commissary location on Bel Air Road in Nottingham means you can pick up fresh-made meals or have our famous crab cakes and seafood shipped anywhere in the country. Dine in, pick up, or ship nationwide. However you Pappas, we've got you covered. Order now at pappascrabcakes.com. Shop Maryland's largest adult use and medical cannabis menu located at 1114 Cathedral Street in Baltimore, with medical delivery available throughout Maryland 7 days a week, only at Relief Shop.
I'm retired now, but I was an Orioles home run. Grand slam, actually. Took a sweet ride right into the flag court, and it was awesome. Could be awesome for you, too. If you play Home Run Riches from the Maryland Lottery, you could win instantly, or be a contestant of the game and win $500 for being selected, $500 for every Orioles home run, and $5,000 for every Grand Slam. Sounds like a ball, if you ask me. Enter all season at mdlottery.com.
In a city where passion runs deep, on the stage and on the field, Baltimore knows how to bring the heat. Whether it's a game-winning home run or a breathtaking violin solo, this town plays to win. The Baltimore Chamber Orchestra champions the creative soul of our city with bold performances of classically captivating music. Join the team that brings precision, power, and heart to every performance. Learn more and get your season tickets now at thebco.org.
You know what's really cool? I'll tell you a funny story. And try to end with this, trying to merge the analytics. So when Mike was with the A's, right, he was a great defender, right? But we didn't really have ways of, at that time, of really, we weren't real good at analyzing defense. It was sort of the naked eye. And the naked eye, Mike was good. You know, the thought was he played around his arm by getting in position. He released the ball quick, you know, all sort of subjective things. But one of the bugaboos with the A's was that Mike didn't get on base enough. Mike, remember that? It was like saying, how we got him. I'll tell you a funny story though. When the analytics started to become really advanced, I remember Mike had just signed with the Orioles, and we were starting to get into some really deep analytics that would sort of power us. And they had a list of all the shortstops, and with everything, base running, fielding, hitting, and there stood Mike Bordick right there at the top. And I remember thinking like that there at this time there was more to just analyzing a player in general, just other than just their on base percentage. That because Mike, you really weren't an on base walk guy, Mike. You were a no. But the stuff that we started looking at going further did a better job. The Mike Bordicks of the world don't go undiscovered anymore. But when Mike was signed with the Orioles, it was and what was you talking about blending the two, Mike and Jerry, the old school and the new school? Mike was a classic example because traditional baseball, they loved Mike. Tony loved him. Mike was one of his favorite players. I remember. But if you looked at it as just his on-base percentage in a very myopic way, you go, well, this guy's just kind of ordinary. But then when you went deeper and you looked at the analytics, he was one of the best shortstops in the league. And I remember, yeah.
Wish I would have known that.
Yeah, no.
Or my agent.
Yeah. Well, listen, it was you deserved to be rewarded with what you did at that time. It was, and so I can tell you. In fact, maybe if we get together in person, I might be able to dig it up. But it was pretty pretty compelling. Like, and again, that was the separation from looking at stats and the more progressive analytics that existed out there that measured things that Mike did that traditional stats didn't. And so, and as a result, he was a really, really, really good player. That's why he played 14 years in the big leagues.
Yeah, we can't get any dirt on Mike from anyone. That's been
you know what? You're
Get my wife on the show. You'll find something.
Oh, well, I mean,
Wife, I'm sorry.
won't be invited. She's off limits. I do have one final question for you, Billy. I want to ask you how you view the Orioles from afar and the job that Mike Elias has done. They tore it down, they built it back up, and now we don't know where they are.
Listen, Mike's done an amazing job there. He is a really smart. I don't know Mike real well. I knew Jeff Luhnow, who was his with him in Houston, but Mike is. Listen, they've done an amazing job there, and you guys touched on it. Injuries you just can't. I mean, you can't predict them. But if you look at the talent base that they've created there, it's pretty. It's probably in terms of building up a young talent base, it's about as good as I've seen since when he was there in Houston. And so again, I sort of go back to what I said earlier. The 30 people running teams are really smart, and Mike has sort of proven with what he's done, and he's done it with a lot of discipline too. It's really easy sort of to listen to the noise out there. And Baltimore, people, Baltimore, right? But Baltimore is a big baseball town. The people know their baseball. They've got a history going back to Mike's before Earl Weaver. I mean, Earl Weaver was my hero as a manager. I thought, that was the kind of, Davey Johnson, who was, my first manager. So they know their baseball. The great thing I always thought going into Baltimore is that if you're running the team, they probably appreciated player development and creating and drafting your own players and being patient with them more than anybody, because that's how the great Baltimore teams were built, on those core farm systems and things like that. So you have a smart fan base, and you have a smart gym. I mean, Mike Elias again is done an amazing job there, and they're set up pretty well. Listen, they had some injuries last year, but they've got probably the best young talent base in the game.
Well, Billy, I'm out of questions. Mike, you got anything else?
No, man, I'm just so appreciative you came on, Billy.
Yes.
It's great to see you.
No, as well, guys. I might have showered and dressed up if I'd have known we've been on camera, but hey, it is what it is.
And keep me in mind if you need an infield coordinator.
Yeah. Well, listen, I don't. When a guy like Mike Bordick calls you, it doesn't matter what he does. So absolutely, Mike. Yeah, no, it's great to see you, Jerry. It's great to be on with you, and thanks for having me. And it should be a fun 7th game tonight with Toronto and Seattle.
Well, if he does find a job with you, just make sure you allow him to do the podcast as well. I don't want to.
Oh yeah. Well, listen, we absolutely. Well, given our compensation level, he's going to have to.
Hey, Billy, it's been our privilege. Thank you so much for your time.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Now, a lot of this credit has to go to you, Bordy, for getting Billy Beane on. I can't thank you enough. What a great conversation we had with this guy who doesn't do interviews.
I'm telling you, man, pretty enlightening. I think as an analytic GM, he made me kind of buy in a little bit. Like, let's go, man. This is the way it's going to be. You better catch up, or it's going to pass you by.
Very smart, man. And again, very grateful you were able to obtain him for this podcast. Let's move along. For the Birds, this portion sponsored by the Maryland Lottery. Playing the Maryland Lottery responsibly means knowing what's true and what's not about your favorite games. Learn the facts and the myths by going to mdlottery.com. That's mdlottery.com. And as always, please play responsibly. So, Bordy, the Orioles have found their new manager. His name is Craig Albernaz. I have to admit, I did not know who this guy was. I had to do a Google search on him, but I didn't hear about Brandon Hyde until he was hired. And This is his first major league gig like Hyde. Your thoughts on the hiring and, what it means for the organization?
Well, I think it's very similar to Brandon Hyde in the sense that he really kind of earned his stripes coming up through the minor leagues. A former player like Brandon Hyde got in at the lower levels and really kind of dabbled in everything. He was a former catcher, so he's got, I guess, an inbred kind of understanding of how the game works, right? I mean, they all end up becoming field coordinators, and that's what he's done. And he's been in the big leagues too, with some pretty good teams, right? The San Francisco Giants and, of course, the Cleveland Guardians. So pretty good big league experience as well. Listen, I Googled him. I did some research, but I also called a former player that played with him in the minor leagues and absolutely loved him and knew that he was going to keep climbing in baseball. And I'll tell you why. because he's a really good communicator. He knows how to explain baseball. He understands situational baseball. Sure, he's got an analytic base. I mean, all players do now, and I think it's very attractive, especially to a GM like Mike Elias. But this is the deal. I know he's going to be really good for this young group. He's going to be an awesome communicator. But I also think there's a control factor. I know Mike Elias is going to be sending the numbers down to him, and he's probably already said, yeah, I absolutely believe in that, so we will work that way. I still think there should be more of a baseball kind of drive in there. I hope he's got a lot of that under his skin. I know he's been exposed to big league guys before, so hopefully that's the way it's going to go.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how much control he will have. That's not the way things are going for major league managers these days. Will he have the opportunity to pick his own coaching staff? I'm hearing rumors that the Orioles may retain some of these coaches, which, should be his decision and his decision alone, in my opinion.
Well, that's an old school kind of mentality, because I think here recently we're seeing that they'll hire a manager and they'll say, yeah, but we're picking the other coaches that believe in our philosophy that will follow suit. Not your philosophy, but our philosophy as an organization. So that's probably what's going to happen. But this is going to be interesting, because you got to understand this. The Orioles, over the last couple of years, that they don't really pay coaches. They always try to keep everything kind of under value, I would say. So they're getting a new manager. So you got to understand he's going to be a little bit cheaper. And maybe on that cheap side of it in negotiations, he might say, but I'd like to bring my buddy over too, just so that we feel more comfortable. So he may get to pick a couple different coaches. Yet to be seen, but it'll be interesting to kind of follow how that goes.
Now, this is my personal opinion. I thought it was kind of tacky for the Orioles to try and push season tickets with the announcement of Craig Albernaz. No one is going to buy season tickets, with all due respect to Mr. Albernaz, unless your last name is Albernaz, based on this hiring. What I want to know is when David Rubenstein speaks next Tuesday, what the plan is going forward. I'll have some pointed questions for the owner. So if he's watching the podcast, be prepared, because some harsh questions are going to have to come his way. Again, the Orioles will hold a press conference next Tuesday at Camden Yards, have Albernaz, Elias, and Rubenstein all together in one room.
That's going to be, I can't wait for that. Yeah, because they've got to go in the right direction. Listen, if you're going to get a new manager and say he's highly touted and really well respected across the industry, at the lower levels, everybody kind of agreeing that they could see that he would be up in the big leagues one day, you better support him somehow, right? As an owner, you better go out and get some pitching. You need a bullpen, and we already know we need a couple more bats. If you're truly going to try to compete to win a World Series, not just get back into the postseason, almost half the freaking league gets into the postseason now. We're talking about taking the next step, being one of those teams that can compete with the teams like the Blue Jays and the Dodgers and the Yankees and the Red Sox consistently year in and year out. That sustainable kind of success. You're going to have to spend some money. So they're cutting money on the coaches, but they better dump some money into the players if they really want to support this guy and have sustainable success.
It's saving season at Lido Pizza. 99-cent refreshing iced teas for spring and summer, or $6 calzones every Tuesday. There are tons of new deals and rewards for everyone, exclusively at LidoPizza.com or on the Lido Pizza app. Lido Pizza, a local legend since 1955, proud partner of the Baltimore Orioles. For years, we were told to say no, but Verano is rewriting that story with award-winning flour, vapes, edibles, concentrates, and topicals for every kind of vibe. Shop smart with Savvy. Treat yourself with Encore chocolates. Relax with an Avexia bath soak. Or keep it light with Bits gummies. Want something premium? Grab Essence pre-rolls or a Reserve 8th. Verano makes premium cannabis for all. Find out for yourself. Head to one of our original sponsors, Relief Shop in Baltimore on Cathedral Avenue, and mention Bmore Verano for an exclusive deal. That's Bmore Verano. This ad and products are intended for legal consumers 21 and over. Everyone knows Greenmount Station in Hampstead, but did you know that at Greenmount Station you can bet 7 days a week just like you're at the track? With in-person teller windows and state-of-the-art touchscreen kiosks. And with Greenmount Station's brand new Bet Park Sportsbook, you can bet on all other sports as well, wherever you are in Maryland. Spreads, money lines, live bets, props, parlays, and teasers. The Bet Parks Maryland mobile app is now live for Apple and Android devices, so you'll never miss your next big score. Just search for BetParks MD in the Apple App Store or on Google Play. 21 and over only. Please play responsibly. For help, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Effective Solutions, your one-stop shop for commercial contracting. Everything from excavation and site development to emergency remediation and restoration. Effective Solutions specializes in many forms of commercial and mixed-use construction. With a dedicated staff and a commitment to quality, Effective Solutions delivers every time.
Well said. And that transitions to Baltimore and beyond, our national and sometimes international perspective. It's all brought to you by Relief Shop. Relief Shop, Baltimore's best adult use and medical cannabis dispensary with 700 plus unique menu items. They always have home delivery available for medical patients, courtesy of Relief Shop. They're located right there in the heart of Baltimore City on Cathedral Street. So the Orioles want to get back to the World Series. They haven't been there since 1983. The World Series right now, to me, can be summed up in 2 words: Shohei Ohtani. He has dominated this thing. And as we're speaking, the series is still going. He just pitched the other night. Didn't go as long as maybe some expected after a unbelievable game in that marathon game 3. Yeah. Also, Yoshinobu, I learned these guys' names because they're important. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, a complete game. There's a reason they paid these guys hundreds of millions of dollars to come over to Japan, and they have delivered thus far. But this series is going to end in Canada, not in America.
How about that? That's incredible, right? The fighting Blue Jays, they are really putting it onto them right now. I mean, their offense, we've known it all along, can be very explosive. They have the ability to put crooked numbers up as well as any team in baseball, and we see how pesky they are. It's like every guy puts together this unbelievable at-bat where they're putting the ball in play. It's just constant pressure 1 through 9. And the stars are showing up. Guerrero Jr., are kidding me? I mean, this guy is now emerging as one of the superstars in the game. He's been hidden across the border, but here he is in the World Series. He's had an unbelievable postseason. He was a championship, MVP, Ohtani MVP, and these guys are just not disappointing. These teams are not disappointing at all. We're seeing some sensational things. That 18-inning game was like, it had you on the edge of your seat the whole time, expecting something to happen. Base runners all over the place. Both teams unable to get the big hit, when they needed it. But the pitching sensational. Ohtani getting on base a record-setting number of times. And then it's like, what's he going to do next? Well, tomorrow he's going to be the starting pitcher. Yeah, right. No, he is. It's unbelievable how captivating this is. And I guarantee you, everybody was just on the edge of their seat wondering what he was going to do in his first at-bat after he pitched the inning. So, I mean, everybody's locked in. I love watching this right now. I think it's a great series. I love the fact it's going back to Canada too. I mean, advantage Blue Jays, if you ask me.
Well, I want to ask you a little bit about that, but I got tired of hearing that Ohtani didn't get his prerequisite 12 hours of sleep. I don't know anyone who sleeps 12 hours a day. I'm grateful if I get 4 hours of sleep.
Right. Well, did you hear Magic Johnson actually talking about his discipline, his regimen? I mean, he does. He really managed. You'd want to talk about a cyber kind of athlete, an AI athlete. This guy is as disciplined as you're going to get. He said he's the hardest worker. He has sleep protocol, workout protocol, nutrition protocol, and superstar protocol. I mean, it's so much fun watching this guy go.
Now, listen, Bordy, I believe that the whole country of Japan is behind Ohtani and the Dodgers, but I have a dispute with a friend who's in the broadcasting business. He seems to believe the entire nation of Canada is behind the Blue Jays. I reminded him there was once a team in Montreal, and do they really cheer for the Blue Jays in places like Calgary and Edmonton?
There are baseball teams there, man. I played AAA in those towns. They do love baseball, but I'll say this, okay? And since the Blue Jays are the only show in town, if there's a hockey game, and it doesn't matter really if it's the Vancouver Canucks or the Senators, if there's a hockey game on, nobody's going to watch the Blue Jays. That's just how it is up there. It is a hockey country, but they are in support of the Blue Jays. I know that, but just don't get in the way of hockey at all.
And that means, I mean, this is post-Montreal we're talking. If the Expos were still around, it'd be different. I understand the politics involved with the U.S. and Canada. That probably alters some things as well.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, you know that for sure. I mean, Canada's got a little chip right there on their shoulder. So, people are rallying behind that. And it wasn't the tariffs that took the Expos away. Okay. So don't bring that up either. Okay. But I understand them really trying to push, to try to get a win up there. I don't blame them. My gosh, they're the only team up there, and the Blue Jays playing some really inspired baseball.
Yeah, just don't call him the 51st state. That's all.
Exactly.
All right, let's move on to the doc. We'll bring in former Orioles team doctor, Dr. Michael Jacobs, for our What's Up, Doc segment. And Doc, speaking of the World Series, let's get back to it. Bo Bichette is reported to be suffering from a posterior cruciate ligament, also known by its gangster name, PCL, but he's playing through it. And what's the treatment for this, and how different is this type of injury compared to an ACL injury?
Well, that's a good question. The posterior cruciate ligament, like baseball players from Maine, don't get enough attention. They're underappreciated. The knee has two ligaments, the anterior cruciate ligament and the posterior ligament cross, and they have different locations. The posterior cruciate ligament is kind of behind the knee, and it's surgically pretty hard to get to. Because it's become so routine is the right word. It's certainly not easy to reconstruct or replace the anterior cruciate ligament. It's very popular to fix them, and virtually every athlete gets it fixed. The posterior cruciate ligament has a similar role to the ACL, and it mainly makes the knee stable with hard rotational activities like cutting and pivoting. So if, for example, your posterior cruciate ligament is completely ripped 100%, your knee will tend to buckle. It tends to happen when athletes hyperextend, much as I think I saw one of the football players, Elliott, safety, have that in the ball game Monday night.
Deshaun Elliott, that's right. Yep.
The problem with the PCL, if there is one, is that, as I said, it's much trickier to reconstruct it, and it's not as consistent. It also turns out that, like all injuries, posterior cruciate ligament injuries are graded. You know, there's mild, moderate, or severe. But basically, mild is a small stretch, like a mild muscle strain. A complete tear is obviously the whole thing is shot. And there's in the middle. So the biggest question is, when they're in the middle and moderate, what do you do? The basic treatment today is rest, rehab, and see if it can heal well enough to be functional. Now, in football or basketball, which is a very hard pivot sport, that could be a problem. In baseball, other than a shortstop or certain third baseman, you sometimes can get away with that, being a little bit careful. So in Bichette's case, we don't know how bad this really is, but most of them are treated with rest and rehab. As you remember, Lamar had a PCL, I think it was 2 seasons ago, the year the backup quarterback fumbled on the goal line, if you remember that year. And there was some question of whether he could or could not play with it. But I suspect in Lamar's case, he's such a athletic quarterback who relies on being a partial running back, he felt uncomfortable playing that way, whereas a Burrows or a Brady probably would have. In Bichette's case, he clearly will have a little sense of instability. That's obviously why they're not playing him at shortstop, which requires more difficult positions. And of course, as Mike can discuss, setting your feet to throw and whatnot, it's a much more difficult throw. So they're trying to put him at second base, where he clearly will not be 100%. They're sacrificing some range for him, and they may in fact be making the ligament worse. But obviously you don't get to the World Series that often, and I guarantee you he and the team is willing to push it a bit. You know, perhaps with Springer out, which it looks like he has an oblique, maybe they'll push him to a DH position where it would put less risk to him. I frankly don't know their roster well enough whether that would add into their backup player roles. But basically, healing these takes from 4 weeks to 12 to 14 weeks to get all the way back. But along the way, you can see what you can do. Bracing is occasionally used. The braces are very cumbersome and clumsy. And if you look at NFL games, you see a lot of the college linemen wear braces. It's never been shown to be helpful, but you'd think it would help. But you see how big and bulky they are. I don't think you can play second base with that kind of brace on.
Right on. Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff, man.
Dr. Michael Jacobs, as always, appreciate the input. Hit him straight down there at Pinehurst, will you? We always thank the doc. We thank our sponsors as well for their loyal and dedicated support since the beginning of this podcast. We're going until, well, close to Thanksgiving, so appreciate
Appreciate all the support.
At Pappas Restaurants, we've been serving up Maryland's best crab cakes for over 5 decades, and now we make it easier than ever to get your favorites. With 4 restaurants and sports bar locations across Harford County, Baltimore County, and Anne Arundel County, you can stop in for fresh seafood, ice-cold drinks, and wall-to-wall TVs. But if you can't make it in, don't worry. We'll bring Pappas to you. Our new state-of-the-art shipping and commissary location on Bel Air Road in Nottingham means you can pick up fresh-made meals or have our famous crab cakes and seafood shipped anywhere in the country. Dine in, pick up, or ship nationwide. However you Pappas, we've got you covered. Order now at pappascrabcakes.com. For years, we were told to say no, but Verano is rewriting that story with award-winning flour, vapes, edibles, concentrates, and topicals for every kind of vibe. Shop smart with Savvy. Treat yourself with Encore chocolates. Relax with an Avexia bath soak. Or keep it light with Bits gummies. Want something premium? Grab Essence pre-rolls or a Reserve 8th. Verano makes premium cannabis for all. Find out for yourself. Head to one of our original sponsors, Relief Shop in Baltimore on Cathedral Avenue, and mention Bmore Verano for an exclusive deal. That's Bmore Verano. This ad and products are intended for legal consumers 21 and over.
I'm retired now, but I was an Orioles home run. Grand slam, actually. Took a sweet ride right into the flag court, and it was awesome. Could be awesome for you, too. If you play Home Run Riches from the Maryland Lottery, you could win instantly, or be a contestant of the game and win $500 for being selected, $500 for every Orioles home run, and $5,000 for every Grand Slam. Sounds like a ball, if you ask me. Enter all season at mdlottery.com.
It's saving season at Lido Pizza. 99-cent refreshing iced teas for spring and summer. Or $6 calzones every Tuesday. There are tons of new deals and rewards for everyone. Exclusively at LidoPizza.com or on the Lido Pizza app. Lido Pizza, a local legend since 1955. Proud partner of the Baltimore Orioles.
In a city where passion runs deep, on the stage and on the field, Baltimore knows how to bring the heat. Whether it's a game-winning home run or a breathtaking violin solo, this town plays to win. The Baltimore Chamber Orchestra champions the creative soul of our city with bold performances of classically captivating music. Join the team that brings precision, power, and heart to every performance. Learn more and get your season tickets now at thebco.org.
Everyone knows Greenmount Station in Hampstead, but did you know that at Greenmount Station you can bet 7 days a week just like you're at the track? With in-person teller windows and state-of-the-art touchscreen kiosks. And with Greenmount Station's brand new Bet Park Sportsbook, you can bet on all other sports as well, wherever you are in Maryland. Spreads, money lines, live bets, props, parlays, and teasers. The Bet Parks Maryland mobile app is now live for Apple and Android devices, so you'll never miss your next big score. Just search for Bet Parks MD in the Apple App Store or on Google Play. 21 and over only. Please play responsibly. For help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Shop Maryland's largest adult use and medical cannabis menu located at 1114 Cathedral Street in Baltimore, with medical delivery available throughout Maryland 7 days a week. Only at Relief Shop. Effective Solutions, your one-stop shop for commercial contracting. Everything from excavation and site development to emergency remediation and restoration. Effective Solutions specializes in many forms of commercial and mixed-use construction. With a dedicated staff and a commitment to quality, Effective Solutions delivers every time.
Until next time, be real, be kind. We'll be back after the big Orioles press conference next week. We'll have some pointed questions to talk about and some pointed questions at the press conference. Until then, be good, and we'll see you for another edition of the Bmore Baseball Podcast.
Do you know who I am? I'm kind of a big deal.